we're going to be working on lessons 11.2 and 11.3. The goal of this, we're going to combine them. So you need to be able to draw and describe plane shapes. Just to kind of review the vocabulary, a plane shape is just the same as like a two-dimensional shape. So it's a 2D shape, which means that it's flat. The opposite of that would just be the three-dimensional shape. So the 2D shapes like triangles, squares, rectangles, those are the types of shapes that we're going to be discussing. We also have some new vocabulary that we're going to be introducing and practicing along with to describe those shapes. Another word that you're going to hear a lot is polygon. A polygon is a shape that has straight edges, so we're not going to have curved shapes like circles and ovals. And we also would not be having shapes that have one curved edge. A polygon has straight edges and doesn't have any curves. A polygon also does not have any openings, so it wouldn't have a space here. Their polygons are closed shapes. The name poly just means many sides. While we are working on doing shapes, we're going to hear a lot of these words very frequently. Just to kind of get you familiar with them, vertices, sides, and angles, we're going to be drawing some shapes. We're going to start here with the triangle. Now, triangles are shapes that you've probably heard a lot of your whole life. But triangles are really cool in that not only do they all have three sides, but triangles can be drawn in many different ways. So you could have a triangle, and of course it has to have three sides. So no matter what, if we were describing our triangle, we would say the triangle has three sides. If I was going to draw another triangle, let's do a really skinny one. This one also has three sides. What if I do a really, really tiny one? It has three sides. So all triangles have three sides. The other cool thing I want you to notice about triangles, it has the prefix tri. The prefix tri means three. But the other cool thing is if we were talking about the vertices, now remember, those vertices, I'm going to just draw some black dots, are where those two lines are intersecting. Intersecting, that just means they're touching together. Intersection reminds me of when I'm driving and I come to the intersection, the stoplight, where there's a street. We call that the intersection. So these intersecting lines, we're going to call those our vertices. Now the base word is vertex. So if you have a question about that, vertex is just the base word. So vertices, if I look at each of these triangles, 1, 2, 3, that one has three vertexes, three vertices, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So each triangle has three vertices. We already knew that they had three sides, but I do want to show you this fun way that I like to do my sides. I like to put one line on each one as I'm counting. When you get into the shapes that have a lot more sides, it's easier to put the little line on there so you remember and you don't recount or you don't skip one of those sides. The next thing I want to talk about is angles. When I'm looking at the angles, I am looking at this space right here, and maybe I'll just do a different color for that. So this space right here, this is called an angle. When you're measuring, and maybe let's say that you were working with wood, and you had to make an angle for something, and I'm just looking around to see what kind of angles that I could have. I don't really have anything cool around me. But anyways, the angle measurement is really important. You wouldn't want something to, like if you were trying to make something flat, you wouldn't want it to roll off of something that you were making. So measuring those angles is really, really important as you get older. So that's kind of how you could real world do that. But angles, I want you to notice that there are three angles on each triangle. So if I'm talking about this triangle, remember, has three sides. It has three vertices. It also has three angles. So triangle, all of those have to do with the number 3. Something important I want you to know is that, yes, they all have three angles, but sometimes some triangles can have a different size of an angle. So I want you to look over here. This is called a right angle. I know it's a right angle because it's got, I I don't know, it's square. This is a square side of the angle. It's worth 90 degrees. It's not something that you have to know right now, but this angle is worth 90 degrees. This is a right triangle. That is something that you're going to have to pay attention to as we go along, is right angles. You might be asked, hey, draw a right triangle. This would be a right triangle. A triangle with a right angle has a square angle. So this one does not have square angles. Notice how it's it's an acute triangle. So we've got these acute edges. That just means they're small, they're cute. We could have an obtuse angle. Let's see. Which this one is just big. So you don't have to know those fancy acute and obtuse, but you do need to be familiar with the right angle of 90 degrees. We'll talk about some other shapes that have a right angle. So there's your triangle. You need to know triangles have 3 sides, 3 vertices, 3 angles. The next shape that I want to talk about is the quadrilateral. You might think of a quadrilateral and notice this number of this word called quad. That's the prefix. Quad means 4. So a quadrilateral has the number 4. So any shape that has 4 sides, any polygon, remember it has to have those 4 sides that are straight, not the curved edge, has 4. So a triangle would not qualify as a quadrilateral because it has 3 sides. So we've got a square. We could have a rectangle. And for this chapter, you're not going to write, oh, the name of that shape is a square. Oh, I know that. It's a rectangle. No, 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 no. You've got to call it a quadrilateral because that's our new fancy word that we're going to use to describe those. You might even see some other cool shapes that maybe you know another name for. What if I turn it this direction? That's still a quadrilateral. It has 4 sides. Any kind of way that you can make the 4. So look, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's a quadrilateral. 1, 2, 3. Oh, gotta connect it. That's a quadrilateral. So you might call that a trapezoid. Nope. Not today, friend. You're calling it a quadrilateral. So another thing that you should know about quadrilateral and it having 4 sides is it also has 4 vertices. Again, those same kind of patterns. No matter which one of these that I look at, we've got 4 vertices. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we go again. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we've got 4 vertices, 4 sides. Guess what? They also have 4 angles. So it's like the magic number of 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, quadrilaterals, sometimes they do have right angles, but sometimes they don't. Let's look over at a rectangle. A rectangle actually has 4 right angles. A square also has 4 right angles. I'm not sure about this guy right here, excuse me, but if I look over here, these are not square. These little pieces here are less than, or they might even be greater than in some instances. So I wouldn't put these little square. If I was told, hey, draw a shape that has 4 sides and 4 right angles, I could choose to draw a rectangle, or I could choose to draw a square. But remember, the fancy name I'm going to call that is a quadrilateral. If I was told you must draw a shape that has 4 sides, 4 vertices, and 4 angles, but all of the sides have to be the same length, that would mean that I should draw a square. Because each of these sides, if I was to measure them, and now I know I'm not perfect at drawing all of this, but if I was to measure them, they should be about the same size. These also have, because it's a square, I can show that I'm trying to make them perfectly square by putting these little boxes in the corners. That means that those are right angles. Now, if I was told, hey, draw a quadrilateral that has 2 same lengths, I guess 2 pairs of equal lengths, I could draw a rectangle. Remember, I'm going to call it a quadrilateral. And these also would have 4 right angles. So they would be a little bit different. And that's just kind of how that ends up being. You can have a lot of fun with quadrilaterals. These are not all of the ones that you can create. There are so many, but as far as this goes, that's what I want you to remember. The next shape that I want to talk about is a pentagon. Now, pentagons are a little bit tricky to draw. I've kind of noticed that a lot of you guys were having some trouble with pentagons, but that's okay. You've got to have a lot of flexibility with this. Your pencil has an eraser. Make sure you're not doing your math problems in pen. Pentagon. Penta means 5. So all of these are going to have 5 sides, 5 vertices, 5 angles. So pentagon. Any shape that has 5 sides, any polygon, remember it's a closed shape, it's not having those curved pieces. It has 5 sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this one, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. If I was going to go through and count my vertices, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. My angles. Now I'm going to just circle my angles. It's a little easier. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we've got a pentagon with 5 sides, 5 vertices, and 5 angles. I'm going to try to see if I can create a different one. This is the one that's kind of traditional when I think of a pentagon. This is the shape I usually think of. So any closed figure, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, this one's funny. 5. So let me just double count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now I have 2 different pentagons, but I could put them in the same category. They have 5 sides. They have 5 angles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 5 vertices. These are pentagons. Penta means 5. So when I think of a pentagon shape, I think of a closed figure that has 5 sides, 5 angles, 5 vertices, and I feel like there was another something. That's okay. I can't remember what the other thing was. So penta means 5. When I think of the next shape, it's a hexagon. I think of the color yellow. I remember in kindergarten playing with those shapes. Now, I don't have any at my house right now, but playing with those shapes, and I think of a hexagon as having a yellow color. For some reason, those shapes, I remember this right here. Pretend like it's yellow. Maybe you'll have a picture of that as well, and it can help you remember. So this is a hexagon. Hex means 6. So a hexagon has 6 sides, 6 vertices, and 6 angles. Now, every hexagon does not look identical. As long as it has these things, 6 sides, you can call it a hexagon. If it has 6 vertices, you can call it a hexagon. 6 angles, it's a hexagon. So this polygon is a hexagon. If I was told what's the name of this, it's a hexagon. What else can I make of a hexagon? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ooh, this hourglass looking shape. There we have it. There's another hexagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now they look totally different, but they both are classified as being hexagons. Remember, all of these shapes that we've been talking about today are plane shapes. They're not two-dimensional. They're not three-dimensional shapes. These are all two-dimensional shapes. What we've noticed is no matter how many sides they have, the number of sides, angles, and vertices are all equal. These plane shapes that we've been talking about, we've got our quadrilateral, we've got our triangle, we've got that hexagon, and the pentagon. I can call all of these plane shapes. I could also call them all, I could change that label and say this is a group of polygons. That's kind of what I need you to be practicing, drawing and describing the plane shapes. You should be able to tell how many vertices that the shapes have, how many angles that those shapes have. Remember, there is that special name for the right angle. Now, if it has a square side, you call that a right angle. Otherwise, you can just worry about calling it an angle. It also we discussed the sides. So describing them, that's where you would use these type of words. Instead of saying I can describe plane shapes, you can also say I can draw and describe polygons. Okay? So those are the things that I want you to be practicing. Please remember that your pencil has an eraser, and you're not expected to do all of these things perfectly, but I do want you to try your very best. In your bag that I sent home, you do have that ruler. So it's just a paper ruler, but please use that if you're having some trouble with your lines. Remember, polygons are closed figures. You shouldn't have any open spaces. So make sure to close your shapes and to have fun with your drawing of your shapes.